On July 2, 2026, the national news highlights a striking contrast between India's maneuvers on the global stage and the grounded reality of its streets. To international observers, the headlines paint a picture of a calculated geopolitical heavyweight, making precise, long-term moves across the board. But for the citizens living it, the day's reality is dictated by the visceral and often unpredictable forces of the local climate. It raises a difficult question. How do we reconcile these two drastically different versions of the same country, existing in the same 24-hour window? Understanding modern India requires looking past standard economic growth figures to analyze the friction between this high-stakes global ambition and massive local disruption. The day begins at the highest levels of the state, where diplomats are finalizing long-term strategic alignments. Indian and Japanese officials signed a series of major bilateral agreements, building a foundation for the next decade. The core focus areas are artificial intelligence, clean energy, and technical trade cooperation. Securing these partnerships with a veteran industrial power acts as a strategic hedge. It seamlessly integrates rapid Indian technical development into a highly stable, Western-aligned framework, just as the country attempts to massively scale its own tech sector. While that deal was being finalized, the government made a simultaneous diplomatic pivot, sending an official delegation to the Middle East. The delegation attended the funeral of Iran's former supreme leader. By maintaining these high-level ties, the state reinforces regional connections prioritized for decades. This illustrates multi-alignment. India acts as a central hub, extending independent tethers to Japan and Iran simultaneously. This pragmatic strategy prioritizes national interest over traditional alliances, balancing dual connections perfectly. But as those diplomats move through international boardrooms, the street-level reality back home is being rapidly overtaken by the overwhelming force of the monsoon. In Delhi, the rain brought immediate relief from a record heat wave, but across the rest of the country, the weather is becoming a logistical obstacle. Heavy rain alerts were issued across the western coast. In cities like Mumbai, deep floodwaters are overtaking urban infrastructure, forcing transportation to a crawl. This geographical reality doesn't just affect commuters. It disrupts the cultural events that usually anchor the national mood. A highly anticipated T20 match between India and England was a total washout. Despite a strong start, the game was abandoned, leaving the pitch covered. It's a reminder that no matter how much diplomatic influence the state builds, the daily rhythm of the nation remains deeply beholden to its climate. But what exactly happens to the sheer economic momentum of a billion-plus population when severe, unpredictable weather forces millions of citizens to suddenly stay indoors? We see an immediate shift toward digital consumption. The early rollout of Amazon Prime Day sales saw high volumes of goods moving through logistics hubs. The data shows that high-end electronics, specifically laptops and smartphones, were the primary drivers of this shopping surge. This massive digital shift acts as an economic buffer. It shows that even when physical movement is constrained, the consumer economy has built enough capacity to maintain steady activity. The July 2nd news cycle covers an immense amount of ground: AI treaties, state funerals, flooded cities, and an e-commerce boom. Viewing these events in isolation makes the country seem disconnected or simply chaotic, but the broader picture shows a specific kind of resilience.
On the left, the long-term strategic goals continue to move forward, even as the system constantly absorbs the jagged spikes of local disruption on the right. Managing this constant duality, pursuing a global agenda while absorbing recurring internal shocks, is a form of operational friction. It forces the nation to function in a state of permanent, high-stakes problem-solving. Ultimately, these 24 hours suggest that power in the coming decades may be defined less by perfect internal stability and more by the ability to move a global agenda forward, even while the ground underneath is shifting.